Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with me, your host, for only the second time. First time that I've got a glamorous assistant. I'm Dave Robinson, DMD, and my good friend and co-host, Adam Cousins. How are you doing, my friend?
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. I am good, thanks, my man. We've not long got off the SmackDown review on this lovely Saturday. So I'm looking to catch some sun rays shortly before a big soccer final over here in the UK this evening. So, but looking forward to doing my first Rampage. You set the bar so high last week, Dave, that I'm going to have to. I said I might need to be your assistant this week because you set the bar so high as host.
Well, yeah, and I was hoping to bring you on to a show that was going to be really positive. And last week's Rampage show, for me, it was possibly the best era of wrestling for me this year. I absolutely loved it. There's 4 so strong matches, and that's what Rampage can be.
Yeah.
You know, this week, it just seemed like it was booked a few weeks ago. And it did, rather than building on what they did that last week, they didn't. But we'll get on to that. Couple of bits of news first. It's coming out. There's a lot of rumors online about Kenta possibly appearing at Forbidden Door, and interestingly as well, there's a lot of rumblings that his opponent at Forbidden Door may be Mr. CM Punk. So for those who don't know, they've had a rivalry for a long time. Punk was told when he joined the WWE, he was using the Anaconda voice, I think, and they wanted him to use a new finishing move, and he stole the GTS, the go to sleep, from Kenta. He has kind of acknowledged that he stole it. I've heard him in an interview say that the reason he didn't change the name was out of respect for Kenta, and he kept it as the go to sleep. But when Kenta then joined the WWE, he wasn't allowed to use the move, was he? I think he may have used it once on Kendrick.
NXT, I think, they teased it for a big pop.
So,
yeah.
Kenta has played into this on Twitter over the years, and he's put stuff out there. When Punk was at a New Japan show recently, Kenta said that his biggest fan was in the crowd that evening. So they've teased it more from Kenta's side than Punk's. Ad, would you be interested to see that match? Would that add to what is already shaping up to be a solid card for Forbidden Door?
Take my fucking money, I think is what I said when you sent me the picture. That's what I would say. I want to see that match. My concern will probably be, and go know with Punk very well, that the backstage, would he demand to go over this? Would he put Kenta over? I don't know. In terms of the match, I want to see it, but I just hope that, the backstage there was no drama with it, basically.
Yeah, and it's a big match that's going to sell pay-per-views, isn't it? And I think Forbidden Door is pretty much sold out, give or take a few
before
tickets.
the matches.
Yeah. So if you're shaping up for and I know WWE had the triple main event, and we laughed a little bit, but if that match does go ahead, you'll have Kenta against Punk. You'll have Will Ospreay against Kenny Omega in a rematch from January when Kenny won, and he won the New Japan Pro.
Has Ospreay ever beaten him?
I don't think so. I think that match was possibly their first match, and Kenny won the US title, the New Japan US heavyweight title. And then Danielson Okada, which is the best wrestler in Japan against perhaps the best wrestler in America. Those 3 matches, as you said, take my money.
That's it. Just put them 3 on the card and let them battle it out for an hour apiece.
We love fantasy booking, so if we get any strands like that we can kind of pull, we're always going to go after them. But
speaking of fantasy booking, before you move on Thursday this week, we will be releasing our very own Forbidden Door. Myself and Dave have done a WWE versus AEW Forbidden Door pay-per-view fantasy books with match results. Dave had to do his over about 4,000 nights because he couldn't get good.
It was tough.
It was tough. It was a tough thing to do. We've managed to get it down to, I think, to about 12 to 14 matches, but we've done it. That airs on Thursday. Dave, what's the other piece of news going on around the AEW scene?
So something that plays into Dynamite a few weeks ago, we saw both Thunder Rosa and Miro walk into Tony Khan's office. And that was just prior to the announcement about Collision that it was a secret, but it wasn't, was it? It was one of the worst kept secrets that AEW were launching this Saturday night show. It's now been announced that Miro will be making his return at Collision next week. The first step, I imagine, in a match as well. I would say he's not really done too much. He's done some backstage vignettes, bits and pieces when he was doing the Redeemer stuff.
Yes,
I hope that he brings the Redeemer back. To be honest, I really enjoyed that. But it looks like Miro's going to be having a match on the first episode of Collision. Is this good news for AEW?
It's great news for AEW. I love Miro. I loved him when he was in WWE. I thought the booking of him was shocking. Once Cena beat him, he went so long undefeated. Cena beat him at WrestleMania, and he just went to pot. The guy is uber talented. He's got strength, but he's got everything that you need to be a world champion. I've got a feeling it might be a squash, maybe against I don't know, fucking Evil Uno or something. I don't quite know, but having him on the show, I mean, if you look at it, Juice Robinson, Jay White, Joe, Punk, FTR, and now Miro, that is shaping up to be some roster on Collision.
Yeah, solid. Who would you like to see Miro face moving forward? Do you really think that he could be in contention for the world title at some point?
Definitely. Absolutely. There is no doubt. I don't know what the issue is, because he was away for so long. Because he come back briefly, then
he was injured at one point. He definitely had an injury. Same with Andrade.
Few films as well, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was true that he rejected booking stuff. I heard about it. I heard Andrade done it, but he's kind of said that that's not true as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and Andrade, if they're both coming back on Collision, that's two world champions right there for me.
See, I like to think when they're away for these long periods of time, it's kind of a perk for working for AEW that Tony Khan allows his talent to, he kind of rotates them in and out, and they're not getting frustrated that they're not being used because they're actually being granted this time away. And then when they come back, they feel a bit more special. Yeah. So it's one of the two, isn't it? It's either he's not booking them and he's not using the talent that he's got effectively, or they're just enjoying this rest time. So I'm not sure. If I was Miro in my prime, though, I'd want to be appearing week in, week out on Dynamite or Rampage and now Collision. So we'll see. Hopefully he can stay injury-free and he can go on a good run now.
Just a side note, Dave, before we get on to, I know he left AEW to go Ring of Honor. Where'd you put Eddie Kingston?
Yeah, he left AEW to go to Ring of Honor, so that was... What's going on with him at the minute? I know he's had a hernia injury.
So I think he's had a hernia. He's been announced for a show in Japan coming up. I think he's already mentioned he's going back after Claudio upon his return.
Yeah.
I just think he's... I know, obviously, you still need your stars on Ring of Honor, and I get that.
Yeah.
I just think he need... I'm a big Eddie Kingston fan. So I think he needs to be showcased on one of these shows going forward. So I don't know how they would work it, how they're going to... He's also another... he's not had a championship in AEW. I know he's had a lot of matches for titles, which he hasn't been successful in.
Yeah.
They've got to put one on him soon. It doesn't have to be a world.
No, I agree.
Be anything, but they've got to put a title on him soon.
Well, at least the fans absolutely love him. Yeah. From when he came in
Cody, wasn't it?
Cody, the TNT title open challenge. And since he came in, he's just been one of the best on the microphone as well.
All day.
Really, really good in the ring. I'm not sure if he's fully fit, but if he's been announced for shows, then obviously he's ready to come back. And it would be a crying shame for me if he's not featured in AEW and he's on Ring of Honor. Now, I like Ring of Honor. I caught it this week and it was a good show.
Yeah.
But it hasn't got the exposure, obviously, that Dynamite and Collision have got, on national television. And Eddie Kingston deserves to be on national television. He's he's a very talented performer. So let's hope that he does moving forward.
I hope so.
Right. On to Rampage, mate. It was in Colorado Springs. They filmed it at the same time as they filmed Dynamite. First matchup. I've got a little bit of a problem with this, but I'll explain. So it's Bandido and the Lucha Brothers, and they were taking on Ethan Page, Big Bill, and Lee Moriarty. Now, those three were in the Firm. And a few weeks ago, we saw a match at the Hardy compound, which meant that the Firm, because the Hardys won, the Firm had to disband. There was no more Firm. These three guys were the Firm, but they just weren't called the Firm. So I think that's a little bit that's an oversight at the very least for me. Now, they did try and cover for it on commentary and said that Ethan Page had signed for this match prior to that happening and the form disbanding.
Right.
But that was a few weeks ago, and I just thought it was so unnecessary. I love Big Bill and Lee Moriarty, but teaming him with Ethan Page here, it just seemed lazy to me. Do you agree, or am I going mad?
It makes no sense for me. I kind of had that because I thought, well, hang on a minute. I thought the Hardys owned Ethan Page going forward, maybe the contract of Ethan Page, maybe.
Yeah. But because Ethan had signed for this match prior to it, it allowed him to have this match with his old mates in the firm.
Kind of alludes into you if you said it was maybe booked like 3 weeks ago. So
yeah, well, that's what it felt. It felt to me like they did not capitalize on what was a great show last week, and there was a lot of buzz online for it as well. A lot of people saying how good Rampage was, and you got to check it out, and you got to check out the Vikingo match. And then we get this, but in fairness, it was a decent match. You're never going to get a bad match with the Lucha Brothers.
No.
And Bandido did a lot of his spots. He did one where Penta threw him over the top rope and he did like a corkscrew splash, which was really good.
Yeah.
Hardys came out and they distracted Ethan Page, which again, surely they would want Ethan Page to win. If he's under their contract, I don't know how much of it is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but they're saying that they want him to be a better man and a better performer, and they're going to help him and guide him, and then they cost him the match. So I'm not a massive fan of that either. I am a fan of the finisher that Bandido used. That was the 21 plex, where he kind of does a somersault over, and then he does a German suplex with the momentum he gets from swinging back off the rope. So that was great. But yeah, overall, I'm not really satisfied with the story there. Right, on to the next segment. We had a bit of QTV backstage. Yeah. They were talking about how to make content more edgy, and they decided they were just going to send Hobbs out to do his thing. Yeah. And that's what we got next. Hobbs went up against Caleb Crush.
Yeah.
Not a lot to say about it, mate. We talk about squash matches sometime. This was one of them. Established Hobbs, it's what Hobbs needs at times. What I don't think Hobbs needs is QTV. I think the Booker Hobbs and the stuff he was doing prior to that was better, and he's kind of cooled off since he's aligned himself with QT and the gang. I like QTV. I think it's got a space. It's entertaining. It's funny. They take little digs. They took a dig at Punk and the ice cream bars. But yeah, what do you think of Powerhouse Hobbs, mate?
Wasted, to be quite honest. Again, hopefully with this Collision stuff coming on, we'll get to see more of him, because he's a star waiting to happen, but they just not ever pull. I mean, they pulled the trigger. This was one of the times when the TNT title was changing every couple of weeks with Wardlow. He's a star. There's no doubt about it. He's got the look. He's got everything about him, but he's just not being used correctly at the minute. And again, this could have something to do with there only being one show. Rampage is an hour, so you got a lot. They're going to cram a lot in to that hour. So I'm hoping Collision, wherever Wardlow Hobbs ends up after this, when Collision starts, that we see a lot more of him. Set him up with a feud with someone, whoever. I mean, he's not he doesn't have a bad match. So
no. QTV as well. They're a comedy act, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love comedy in wrestling. It's definitely got a place. We've seen comedy spots over the years, and wrestlers that are associated with comedy. Maybe the biggest one, Santino, who we had on the show a couple of months ago. There's definitely room for that. But when you've got this big powerhouse, literally that's his name, aligned with a faction that are kind of there for comedic effect, it just takes a little bit away from Hobbs' overall presentation, in my opinion.
I think they've got to be careful that they don't end up making Hobbs a joke, because you see that, and Santino was a comedy actor, but Santino, that was we kind of always had him that way. That was kind of how WWE positioned him for a long period of his time there. I think now only an Impact, I think he's a bit more serious, but the WWE have got this same thing with Riddle, that they had this comedic Riddle that was he was always high, just basically what he was. So that they're trying to transition him to a serious Matt Riddle. I think that AEW need to transition Hobbs, and quick, because if he stays with QTV for a long period of time, he will then establish himself as just another joke, a comedic ring. Not a joke, because that's a bit too harsh, but he'll just be a comedic value add to their story, basically. And he needs to separate, be his own man. As I say, hopefully with this split, he'll be able to get more time as Will Hobbs.
Yeah, and maybe we'll see him destroy QT and Aaron Solo, and then he can move on from it. I think that's what needs to happen.
Exactly.
Another trios match next, mate. We had the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. Always good to see them.
Always good.
And they were up against the Spanish announced project. So that was Luther, that was Serpentico, and that was Angelico. I'm glad I'm doing that.
I'm really happy that you're taking care of that one.
This was what you'd expect, really. What my frustration with this is, I'm a big fan of Angelico.
Yeah,
I think he's.
I think with Jack Evans initially on this.
He was with Jack Evans. Yeah, that he was a tag team, and it was the tag team he was on. It was on the Indies on that tag team as well. Jack Evans left the company, and Angelico has basically been reduced to kind of appearances on Dark and Dark Elevation.
It's now cancelled.
So part of me was glad that he was here and he was on Rampage, but he was positioned with, well, this Spanish announced project.
Lucky it weren't a Spanish announced table.
Yeah. Well, Luther and Serpentico they've just been jobbers, essentially. And I don't mean to kind of insult them, but that's how they've been presented to us. They haven't picked up a single win, not on Dynamite or Rampage anyway. Serpentico has been fed to like some of the bigger stars, and he's just been similar to Caleb Crush. He's just been in very short matches that have put over the opponent. So I would like Angelico to kind of be repackaged, and because he's such a good wrestler, we've talked about on the SmackDown show about Pete Dunne and what a great wrestler he is. Angelico is, and people probably watching this and thinking, what you're talking about, we haven't seen much of this guy, but I have, and that's why I'm so frustrated that he's just in this act that they're never going to pick up any victories, and they're there just to make other teams look better. I think Angelico's better than that. But the Acclaim picked up the win. They hit the mic check, and they got the pin on Luther. Mate, are you happy with this match? Have I got a point about Angelico, or am I in dream world?
No, Angelico's a great. I would suggest maybe put him in Ring of Honor for now.
Yeah.
Give him some match, because I liked him and Jack Evans when they were together. I watched them I even watched them quite a lot on the Indies, so I know.
Yeah, same.
So Angelico, we talked about Will Hobbs being wasted. He's kind of wasted there, and I think, as I say, moving into Ring of Honor would probably be the first move. Give him some more action. I know it's only another hour. I think it's 2 hours. I think Ring of Honor is.
Yes, 2 hours.
Put a bit, even if he loses to say a Claudio, that can showcase the talent.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see him as part of a trio that are ultimately got no chance of winning. You just know that. You look at the match and you can go, well, the Acclaim win that. And I just think he's got more to offer. And Ring of Honor could be a good fit for him.
We kind of mentioned squash jobs, so Miro could quite easily have Serpentico and it'll be over in seconds, because he'll just hit the pump kick, hit the camel clutch finish, and that'll be game over, or whatever that he does. You knew who was going to win that, before it even come out. And I think, was there not a segment before that where they done the open challenge for Dynamite? So segueing, sorry, into so Wardlow done a open challenge, and it was answered by Hager, right?
Yeah, I skipped over that because I thought it was a horrible segment.
It wasn't great. I was just remembering, I was going through my notes, and I had tagged in Hager Wardlow as a match for Dynamite next week.
Yeah, so Arn Anderson is usually a fantastic talker, and I think he even struggled with this. But Wardlow, he's competent on the mic, but I think he perhaps needed some bullet points to hit, and it was just as if they said to Wardlow, just say whatever you want. And it was just a strange segment. But off the back of that, as you say, we've got the match against Hager on Dynamite.
Sense though, Dave, because Dynamite, you had Christian and Luchasaurus attacking Arn's son.
Yeah.
Logically speaking, you would have Wardlow on a Rampage, wouldn't you? Next, no different, no. You know, we're talking about Rampage, but no. Would you not have him maybe going crazy on Dynamite next week? Because there's not open challenges are fine. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind them. It just didn't make storyline sense to me.
And they could have opened up Rampage with Wardlow coming out at the top of the show, going ape shit, and they could have fed him Caleb Crush or something, and he could have had the squash match, and you could have give Hobbs a proper match, a main event, or so. Yeah, they just do these little things, but there's no follow on. And maybe we talk, you know, next week they do a little bit more of it. Yeah. But for the fans in attendance and for us watching, if you watch Dynamite and Rampage back to back, you've just seen Arn Anderson's son get his head kicked in, and there's been no comeuppance for Christian and Luchasaurus. They've just kind of got Wardlow and Arn having a chat backstage to the camera. Yeah. So, yeah, you know, these finer details are important, and I think they underestimate them at times. And when they book a trio that were known as the Firm, and then they have a storyline where they're disbanded, and then a few weeks later they're tagging again. Yeah. We notice stuff like that, and we have to point it out. And that's, you know, it's justified criticism in my view.
And I think they did on commentary hype up just segueing back to Hobbs. They did mention Hobbs would be going. They did kind of hype up Hobbs on Collision.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. So, yeah, another one, because they've got Collision's 2-hour show. So, there's plenty of space for everyone they've announced so far. It's interesting. And I think after we've got Collision and we've had a few weeks of Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, we'll really see where the wrestlers are aligned and where they're going to be and what the shows look like moving forward. Yeah. So I'm hoping they're just kind of get into that period, and then we'll have the really good content, because this week's show, unfortunately, was missable, to be honest. Nothing really happened that couldn't have been just said on commentary. So that's a shame. It's a shame after last week. But next segment, Jeff Jarrett came out with his gang. So he was there with Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, Sanjay Dutt, Karen Jarrett. They came out to have a chat with Renee, and she just basically said, "What's going on with you guys?" You know, recently, last week, Aubrey Edwards was taken out with a guitar shot from Karen, and they're kind of embroiled in this story with Mark Briscoe. So this was a continuation of that. As they were talking, Aubrey came over with Mark. They said that AEW wouldn't sanction a one-on-one match between Aubrey and Karen. But Aubrey, when she got on the microphone, she was pretty good, I thought. And she said when she sees Karen in catering or backstage, she's going to kick it, she's going to beat her up. Mark Briscoe then said that they haven't sanctioned a one-on-one match, but they will sanction a trios match. Sanjay Dutt says, okay, we're going to have Jarrett, we're going to have Lethal, we're going to have Karen. There's only two of you. We've got the advantage. Mark Briscoe then says, we've got a third competitor, the man that said not to trust you in the first place, Papa Briscoe. So that's set up a trios match that may be entertaining, and I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to see Karen Jarrett wrestling, mate. Do you?
No. I'm not even sure I want to see Papa Briscoe. To be quite honest, I kind of understand it, because Briscoe will not do tags, obviously. Yeah. Well, obviously, and you can understand why. Not even that. I mean, Aubrey's great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I want to see her without the referee stripes on. There may be some favoritism from the referees. I don't know, in that match.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt with this and let it play out.
Let's see.
Aubrey did do a good job selling the guitar shots. She did a good job on the microphone. I'm hoping once this match is done, though, they can move on. And Mark Briscoe, for me, should be a top star in Ring of Honor. I know he did have a match with Samoa Joe for the TV title over there. Yeah. I'd much rather see Mark Briscoe. I know he's funny and he's got a comedic, a cadence when he talks, and he's very deliberate in what he does. But he's such a great wrestler. I'd really like to see him go on a run on his own and break away from this storyline. And I think it served its purpose now, and we can move on.
Yeah, probably going to be next week, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, let's get it done. Move on quickly.
Main event time, mate. So we had a fatal 4-way match, and the winner would be receiving a shot at Toni Storm's women's title.
Yes.
We had Sky Blue up against Nyla Rose, against Britt Baker and Mercedes Martinez.
Yes.
So we haven't seen Mercedes on AEW for a while.
No.
So it was good to see her back. This was decent. There's a few things went awry, but overall it was a decent match. They told a pretty good story. In terms of the winner, Sky Blue picked up the win over Nyla Rose. I think Britt did a move on her, and Martinez chucked her out the ring, or they were kind of separated and they were outside. Sky hit the code blue on Nyla, and she got the 1, 2, 3. If this match was in the WWE, I'm pretty sure Britt Baker would have won, and we'd have got Britt Baker against Toni Storm. But that's a match that we've already seen before. So I'm quite happy that Sky Blue has got the opportunity. She's won a big match. She's been on a real good run. I think she's won 30 out of the last 33 matches, which, granted, a lot of those may be on Dark, Elevation, even house shows, and she hasn't featured too much on Dynamite. But give her the opportunity by all means. We don't expect her to beat Toni Storm.
No.
But positioning her there and giving her a title match is the only way that she's going to improve. And I don't know, I'm quite happy with Sky Blue picking up the win here. What did you think, mate?
Yeah, it did make a change. I mean, Britt's, if you watched All Access and stuff like that, doesn't want to really be in that scene at the moment, does she? The World Championship. I think she'll get it back eventually. I think because that match, I think, is next week on Rampage still, or on Dynamite.
Yes, next week.
So I didn't think if they were going to do it as early as next week, it made no logical sense Baker getting the victory. It made total sense Nyla Rose taking the pinfall. Mercedes and Britt needs to stay strong. Again, maybe we're talking collision for Mercedes going forward. I don't know. I know she's been on Ring of. Wasn't she Ring of Honor champion as well up until recently?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I think Athena beat her, and
that was it. So
I think she'd been injured as well.
Mercedes
Martinez. Yeah,
she has. No, I thought it was a passable main event. I never saw. I mean, it was nice to get a shock factor victory. To be fair, I think that sometimes they work, and especially if, let's face it, as you just said, Toni Storm was not losing that match, so it would make perfect sense. Sky Blue will get a great going out. She'll get a great showing, hopefully anyway, in the match itself, and will showcase what she could do because she's a very good talent. I want to see more of her in AEW. So this could be a catalyst for her to do bigger things later down the line. She won't beat Toni Storm, but match itself was fine. And it was nice to have that little surprise win because I think everyone was kind of expecting Britt Baker to pick that winner.
I think so, yeah. I don't think many people would have picked Sky Blue as the winner. And she was visibly very emotional at the end.
She was.
So yeah, for her to win the main event, albeit it was on Rampage, but she's won the main event. She goes on to a title match. Obviously means a lot to her, and she clearly deserves it. So I think, and Tony Khan does look after his homegrown stars, and he does give them these opportunities to flourish. They don't always, it doesn't always necessarily go to plan, but I quite like that he gives them the opportunity in the first place.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think. From a Tony Khan perspective, as you say, he looks after his homegrowns well, and I think he wants. I think the main thing is also he wants them to succeed in what they do, and he will more than happy give them the time to do it. So hopefully that's a catalyst, and he keeps on that going forward. What we really don't want is the kind of thing where TNA, I think, fell short a little bit. Was as soon as they hired somebody else from WWE, the homegrowns got pushed right back down the ladder. So hopefully Tony Khan thinks more of his homegrown talent and that will constantly use him in good storylines going forward.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah. That's about it for this week's Rampage review. We've got another one next week. It'll be the last Rampage prior to Collision launching. So moving forward, we'll have a bit of a brainstorm and see what we want to do in terms of the coverage of Rampage. We'll certainly try and cover it in the next few weeks, but we'll see where they position it. I'm not sure whether Rampage is going to become the new Dark, and then we get a few like you know, we don't get too much in terms of storyline development. Not that there's a great amount of that anyway. But we'll see. But we'll certainly be covering Collision. I think we're going to be doing that on a Sunday moving forward.
Yes, we will be certainly be covering Collision.
Yeah, and we'll continue our Dynamite on a Thursday. So we'll see what happens to the future of Rampage. But that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. From me, Dave Robinson, DMD, and for Mr. Adam Cousins, baby.
Boom.
That's the wrap. See you guys. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.